Hey, welcome back to Engineers Workshop. So, second week of January, and we had one of those perfect weather events where we had, somewhat extended period of cold days, dipping into the 20s at night, 40s during the day, followed by rain, followed by a quick warm up. It's now like 60, 62 degrees. So the floor is 42, and when you get that warm up, especially after a period of wet weather, that's when you get the condensation on your metal surfaces. So like to see how the cabinet has done with the temperature gun. $49, $50, $57, $69, $75 degrees. So we've been warmer in here. I'd like to have seen maybe a little bit warmer temperatures yet at the upper levels of this, but maybe if I get another cabinet on the back side of this butted up, we'll reduce the heat loss. Had a suggestion from a viewer, and get another set of bulbs in that cabinet. That'll boost the temperature of this even slightly greater above ambient. I'd like to also get a coat of paint on these to make them look a little bit nicer. So I've got a couple of projects lined up. Both of these kind of fall into the category of something that I could not do easily without the lathe, but are going to be a nice, easy project, couple of projects to knock out with the lathe running. So let me take you over to another bench and introduce you to that. So the first project you work on is the one that the customer that screams the loudest for. So my son is screaming for me to help him finish up his remote mount oil project for the Spitfire. So he's got a remote mount oil filter. Takes the, I call this the FL300 or FL3600 filter. If I can get it started without cross-threading it. So this is how it would normally be, but of course there's always a twist. We want to incorporate this heat exchanger. I don't know if you call this an oil cooler or a coolant heater. So that's got to go in between the remote mount filter and the filter itself. So this little piece of pipe has to come out, and we have to put in an appropriate length of, this is a 3/4 16 threaded rod sourced from McMaster Carr. Sandwich. This is a spacer because he has a jam nut on here to hold it in place, and then the filter itself. So we'll be cutting this off to length and assembling all that. Probably use Loctite 574 to permanently stick those pieces together, and some bearing retaining compound or just blue Loctite to keep the threaded stud from unscrewing from the housing, even though the jam nut will hold that, and then the filter itself will unscrew. Let me show you the other half of this. On the block, he has a fully machined oil bypass piece that he sourced from somewhere. And on the original TDIs, there is an absolutely huge oil cartridge that comes up and ends up being literally, I think, taller than the top of the valve cover. Has that coolant sandwich in there. The TDIs are so efficient that they're really hard to warm up. So I'm sure that that little heat exchanger helps warm up the coolant, in a cold engine when the oil starts to heat up. And they actually have another fitting somewhere, he doesn't have it on the engine, that puts 3 glow plugs into the coolant passage to electrically dump heat into the coolant to help this engine warm up. This passage here is slightly over 1/2 inch. I have a 33/64 bit that actually came with my son's drill press. It's an oldie, but it's still very sharp. And so we're going to use this in the tailstock with number 3-2 Morse taper adapter and center drill that threaded rod, maybe from both ends. I don't know, we'll see how it goes, rather than trying to go through in one shot. Second project. This is the quill stop for the K&T rotary head mill. I purchased this from the gentleman that I borrowed it from to initially model the components. And this mounts with 3 5/16 socket head cap screws. Except, wait a minute, they don't fit. So I don't know if K&T did some custom sized socket head cap screw. I know Monarch was famous for making their own screws, or it's possible they had more like a Philister head slotted screw arrangement for this. I don't have them, but anyway, I'm going to take these nice McMaster Carr stainless screws, turn the knurling off, because that just starts to go in until it hits the knurled portion, and make these fit, shorten them if I have to. That's project number 2. Project number 3, this might be a little further down the road. Got this nice pair of Brown & Sharp 750-2 V-blocks that came with clamps, but only came with 1 screw. So I either have to duplicate this. What I may do is buy some 5/16 threaded rod and turn a straight end and then press a solid sleeve on top of it and then knurl that. That'll save me from having to do the threading. This one is a little wonky anyway. I just might as well make a couple of them. Yeah, it's wobbling in its hole here. Looks like somebody over tightened this at some point and also galled up the threads at the end, so that has to be chased. So yeah, got to make a couple of these, and then these will be ready to put into service. So I will put these in the climate controlled cabinet and put those on the shelf for a future project. If you recall, I had the floor mount brackets made from Sencut Send. These were initially made to hold a 2x6. So I ordered a set of 10, which came with a free packet of Swedish fish. And these are slightly shortened. These will hold a 2x4 on edge once this is bent. And then from the back side will be carriage screws and hex nuts. The carriage screws and hex nuts are 304 stainless. These are 304 stainless. So this should be a permanent non-rusting solution to be embedded in the floor to hold the edge for another pour on top of what I have, which will be 3.5 inches thick. And I'll use this as a screed around the perimeter, and we'll put some screed boards probably intermittently in the middle to keep the height consistent on the new slab pour. So let's see how far we get on these, and we'll just roll it into a new video if I don't finish up. I've got my stack height figured out. I've got my cut line marked. So I'm going to go ahead and disassemble this and just cut it off with the 4-inch angle grinder. Clean the ends up in the lathe. That's a nice blend on the ID. Let's just see if I can take any sharp edge off the OD. Probably still have to hit that with the thread file. No biggie. Came out pretty good after some deburring. Quick buzz around the OD with the thread file. And we have a little bit of an increased bore over the original 10 thousandths or so for improved oil flow. So we're going to use Loctite 242, holding the stud into the base. These have been cleaned and degreased with acetone. Loctite 574 is not one you see every day. It is a hardening gasket surface sealant, and it is like glue. It will glue parts together. Very difficult to get apart, maybe with heat, but it definitely will seal any surfaces that are mated. SCW uses it on the gearbox covers, so it's exposed to heat and synthetic oil. It's a continuous 1/8 inch bead. Just centering this by eye. And we'll use the oil filter to act as a clamp. There we go. I'm hoping this coupling nut is reasonably concentric. I'm going to give it a quick pass across the face to square it up. The head has some run out, but it appears that the shank is running pretty true. So let's see what we've got on our counterbores. 321. Excuse me, 451. I was getting the hole. 446. 450. And the head of the screw is about 466. So not a lot has to come off of it. We should probably just keep going until that shoulder is clear. A little more. Slow that feed down. It fits with just a little bit of clearance. So I'm going to leave the tool set where it is and just go in one pass on the rest of these, and then we'll tick the outer corner. Here's our finished product. A bit long. Let's see if we have enough thread depth to accommodate that. While I'm over here at the K&T, I wanted to check out my 3D printed trip dogs, which load into that slot. I don't have the attaching hardware, but perfect fit. And as you can see, the slot here bypasses that actuator, but when that's in that position and the head comes around, it will pop the handle back into neutral. And then you have a somewhat mirror image version that bypasses the inner dog but actuates on the outer one. Sweet. So, 2 sets from my buddy who sold me the quill stop actuator, and keeping 1 set for myself. Just going to check the fit of all of these. Not bad. Well, I'm not going to complain. It is what it is. Got 2 small projects knocked off. It's 2 projects that I just basically would have a real difficult time doing without having the running lathe. So progress is progress. I'm glad I was able to get the oil filter, the remote oil filter setup done for my son. He can progress on locating that in the body of the car and start getting that engine in. The quill stop mounting taken care of. Glad to have that out of the way. I got a couple of little things that I can do while I got the lathe on, and we'll probably just save that for next week. So until then, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Hit the like button, and do encourage your friends to join and follow the saga here, trying to grow the channel. So once again, thanks. See you next week. And as always, until then, stay safe.